Review for you for the adding and subtracting fractions. So remember, when you're adding or subtracting fractions, you must find common denominators. You do not find common denominators when you're multiplying fractions, but you must when you're adding. So the first thing I want you to always do is look at the larger of the two. We have 8 and we have 2. And I want you to ask yourself, is there anything I can multiply times 2 to get to 8? If you can, then you only have to change one fraction. You don't have to change them both. So in this example, let me get a different color here. If I multiply 2 times 4, it gets me 8. But remember, I'm making an equivalent fraction. So whatever I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. So now I have a new fraction, 4 over 8. And I can keep this one the same as it was, right? I don't have to do any changes there because it already has an 8 as a denominator. Now, when I have this, this tells me how it's cut up. It's cut up into 8 sections. I have 3 out of the 8 sections, and I have 4 out of the 8 sections. So that means I have, equals. So I have a total of 4 plus 3. I have 7 of the 8 sections. Do not add your denominators. That's telling you how this particular thing that you're looking at, the pies, the pizzas, whatever, are cut up. So you do not add those together, all right? Find common denominators and add them. So let's look at another one. Go ahead and erase it. Okay. All right, so let's look at let's do 3 over 14 plus 1 over 7. So again, look at your larger denominator because they've got to be the same. If this denominator, 14, if I can multiply something times 7 to get to 14, I'm just going to go ahead and change this one because I don't need to change them both. So I know that if I multiply 2 times 7, I get 14. And that'll give me common denominators. Whatever I do to the bottom, I'm going to have to do to the top. So 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 7 is my 14 that I needed, right? I'm adding. And I go ahead and just keep this the same. Keep my denominators. That's how it's cut up. That does not change. And add my numerators. 5 over 14. And then always look at this to see if you can simplify. The last one and this one, yeah, I can't simplify. But 5 over 14, there's nothing that's going to go into both of them. So that's my final answer that I come up with. Okay? All right, let's look at another one. Remember, you can go back and look at these again if you need to. Rewind it and look at it again. All right, here we go. Let's do 4 over 6 plus 1 over 7. Okay, so now I look at my bigger number, 7. There's nothing times 6 that can give me 7. So now I'm going to have to think, what is a common multiple of 6 and 7? Okay, so remember, multiples are the answers to the multiplication. So 6 times 1 is 6. That's the multiple. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 is the multiple. And I'm looking for common ones. Okay, so there's a couple ways I can do that. I can come over here and do my cake kind of thing that we've done before and say, what can go into 6 and into 7? Well, 2 can go into 6 but not 7. 3 can go into 6 but not 7. 6 can go into 6 but not 7. So the only thing is 1 and done. So I'm going to get it, that means I have to do 1 times 6 times 7, which is 42. That's going to be my common denominator over here, 42. Okay? So I'm going to come over and write 42. Now I have to figure out, how do I go from 6 to 42? Well, I know that 6 times 7 is 42. Whatever I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. I know that 7 times 6, notice they're just flipped, is 42. Whatever I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. Now I've got my fractions and I need to add. I add my 28 plus my 6, and I get 34 over 42. Now remember, this is my fraction that I've gotten, and I always look to see if I can simplify. You can go back and simplify using the cake like we've done, or you can see what can divide into top and what can divide in the bottom. They're both even numbers. So think about if they're both even numbers, what can go into them, okay? And you can go from there. So I'm going to come over here, change colors again. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in this method. 34 and the bottom denominator 42. And I say 2 can go into 34, and if I need to go over here and work it off to the side, I can do it. Because I know it's an even number, right? 2 goes into 3 once. Subtract. 2 goes into 14 7 times. So 17. 2 times 17 gives me 34. 2 goes into 42. I know it can because it's an even number. 2 goes into 2. 2 goes into 4, and you can come over, and if you need to write it out, do it like this. Okay? 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. Drop. 2 goes into 2 1 time. 21. Then I look, is there anything that can go into 17 and 21? If you remember, 17 is a prime number, so the only numbers that can go into it are 17 and 1. So, and there's nothing, excuse me, I don't know why my thing glitched like that. There's nothing that can go into 17 and 21 other than 1 and done. All right, so now my fraction is here. Remember, we said 1 and done. I got my fraction, 17 over 21. That would be my final answer if I simplified this. It would be 17 over 21. Okay? So you have to, if the larger number can't be, if you can't multiply the smaller number times something to get to the larger number, you're going to have to change them both to a common denominator. Okay, and that's where your multiplication facts become really important. All right, let's do one more like that, since that's a little bit more to it. Okay, let's do, all right, let's come back up here, and let's do 2 over 5 and 1 over 3. Okay? All right. Nothing times 3 is going to give me anything for 5, so I have to find a common denominator for both of them. Come over here and list 5 and 3. What can go into 5 and 3 evenly? Well, the only thing that can go into them is 1 because they're both prime. So go ahead. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. So that's going to be my common denominator. That's my least common multiple of both those numbers. This number doing our LCM, that's our least common multiple. All right, so now we know what we've got to get, and so let's go back over here and we say, what times 5 gives me 15? 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. 6. What times 3 gives me 15? 5. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. Now go ahead and add your numerators, because these don't change, remember. 6 plus 5, 11 over 15. And we ask ourselves, is there any way to simplify that? And if you remember that 11 is prime, only 11 and 1 can divide into 11, and 11 can't go into 15 evenly, then we know this is simplified. Okay? All right, so now the same exact thing happens with subtraction, guys. You do the exact same process. The only difference is you're subtracting the numerators. So let's take the same problem, and let's assume that it was subtraction. Okay? Let's make it subtraction. Okay? So when you're subtracting, let me get my pencil back. Not sure why it's doing that. Come on. All right, here we go. Okay, so when we're subtracting, we have to find common denominators. So we have to do the same process. Come up with our same numbers. The only difference is, instead of adding, we're subtracting. So we would have, instead of 6 plus 5, we'd have 5 take away from 6, which would be 1. And we'd have 1 over 15, and that would be our answer. So it doesn't change. The only thing is with adding and subtracting, you must find common denominators. Okay? Hopefully that helps you kind of see those as you're working on your problems.